Hello and welcome everybody, and congratulations on completing the Aladdin Student Portfolio website. In this video and lesson, we are going to launch the freelance project in which you create your own student portfolio, adapting it from this Aladdin walkthrough. So, a little different path we are going to take here, meaning in the past, every project that we've had to start, we had starter code and a link to a GitHub Classroom invitation in which you received a starter GitHub repository. This is going to be one of the few exceptions to that rule. So right now, if you would be so kind, come on over to your GitHub page, sign in, and at this point, for my classroom students, it's very important that you go up to your profile menu, pull that down, and go down to organizations. And let me try that again. There we go. And once you're in organizations, find our classroom organization, CSF 2223. If you are not one of the classroom students in this class, simply follow along and open up your GitHub account, and you are going to create a new repository. So, my students, make sure that you see the Foundations 2223 organization, scroll down to about the middle of the page, and you're going to see find a repository, and over to the right hand side a big button that's green that says new, so please select that. Okay, so this is one of the few times we're going to create your own repository, and the reason behind this is it gets to the naming of the URL that we're going to use, and we're still going to use GitHub Pages to publish this. So you'll still have GitHub .io, GitHubPages.io, and then we'll have the organization name. But now, repository name. Please type in your first name and then the letter, capitalized, first letter of your last name. So first name and then the letter of your last name capitalized. And that is it. Now, in my students, if you see that, if you've got the green check, you're good to go. If you do not, that means someone else has the same combination, so just add the next letter of your last name and we'll be good to go. Let's come down to description and put my CS Student Portfolio website. So my CS Student Portfolio website, let's just checking that spelling. Let's toggle for public, toggle for add a README file, and then that should be it. So click create repository. Okay, so now at this point, you should be at the blank repository page. You should see up in top the name of the repository now. First name, last initial, and we are good to go. All right. Now, we want to start populating this right away. And in the past, if you recall, we had some markdown files that we wanted to add to this. So, mainly, we've had a general rule of never, never, never edit to your GitHub account. And that's just my classroom rule, but we're going to break that just this one time. So, for my classroom in your learning management system, Schoology or Google Classroom, you should have links to 3 different Google documents. So right now, would you please head on over to the readme.md link and open that up. And it should be just a Google Doc like I have here. And we want to just put all of that in make sure you've got it all. We want to copy that and put that all on the clipboard, Control C, and this is for README. So now we want to come back to our GitHub repository that we just created. Now, this is the README is already in existence, so that is right here. So if we click on that, we now see what was created just from the creation of the repository. So now come on over next to the raw blame. There's a little pencil there. Click on that pencil and open that up. And we want to move the cursor to the end of the description that we typed in, hit enter twice, and paste. And that's going to paste all of the markdown, the raw markdown code. And let's see, I have some duplication here, so I'm just going to delete the initial. There we go. So we should have my Student Portfolio Q2 Project 2 Freelance. And let's come on down to commit changes. And right now you should have updated the README to include all of the resources that we've been using for many of our projects. All right. So let's do the same. Let's come on over to the file git Linux command that's in the Google Doc, and we want to copy everything there. That is one page. And in this circumstance, let's go back to our main page. So click on that name of the repository, and we want to add a file. So we want to create new file. Select that. In the name of your file box, type in git Linux command. And we're using upper camel case, so that means the G, the L, and the C are all capitalized. Very important that you put .md after this so that GitHub understands the type of file that you want to create here. So we hit Control V to paste, scroll down, and now we have copied over a very useful utility markdown file on how to push work up to GitHub and also commonly use Linux commands. So we want that with all of our projects. And usually that is provided with the starter code. So since we were not doing that, we wanted to add it in this fashion. Excuse me. All right, so now one final document we want to add here is the project specs. So come on over to that Google Doc in the learning management system. Let's do the same thing. Let's copy everything all the way down to the very end. Control C, make sure you've got everything. There's nothing left behind. And we want to go back to the main page again of our repository. Add file. And the file name here is project specs.md. So project capital SPECS.md for markdown. Move your cursor right next to the right of the number 1 there and paste. And you should now be able to scroll down and commit that file. And this, if we open that up, is the project specifications for this particular freelance. So notice all the way down at the bottom is our rubric. This is 150 points, time and classroom management, admin specs, general specs, and also the creativity piece here. So my students are asked to freelance, which is simply taking what they learned in the walkthrough and making it their own. They're using the Aladdin Student Portfolio walkthrough as a model to create their own professional student portfolio. So we go on to explain what professional is, the structure needed, and so on. So we'll take care of that. We'll read that together in class, but now we've got the markdowns all set and ready to go. So let's click back on the name of our repository. Okay, so if you haven't already, fire up your Cloud9 IDE, and now we want to be at the main page. So click on your name one more time. Make sure it's your name page. You should see a listing of all the files and the 3 that we have added. So we enhanced the README, and then the other 2 that we added, project specs and git Linux commands. Okay, so now we want to actually go to code, and we're going to clone this down to our project. So when we select clone, we have 3 choices. We are choosing the HTTPS. That is simply copying the address of this repository. So let's click on the file copy selector there, put everything in our clipboard, and now come on over to your Cloud9 IDE. Okay, and just like we have done in the past, we are going to start the process of cloning a repository down. And this is the same as we've done in the previous 3 projects. So the most important piece here, you want to make sure that your terminal is only at the environment folder. Okay. If it's in any other one, either hit cd space ... to move back down to environment. Or if you just see Volkslab, then cd space en and then hit tab and have environment come up. Okay. All right. So at this point, let's type in the commands git clone and paste. And now you can see coming up on the screen our okay, so now we want to paste the URL and hit enter, and that should have copied down the files from our GitHub repository. So let's just double check that. So there's a couple of ways to do that. So number 1, let's hit clear on our Linux command on the command line, and we want to change directory cd space into this new directory. I only have one folder beginning with my initial, so I'm going to hit M and then tab, and it should autofill the rest. And now if I type in the Linux command ls for list, I should see the 3 markdown files there. So that seems to have been copied down successfully. Let's check the folder structure on the left-hand side. We should see the same. So if I pull down the folder structure for my student portfolio, there are the 3 files. All right, so we're going to slide this terminal up just a little bit and get a little more work in here. So we are almost done. Make sure, again, if you are now in just environment, we want to change directory into the project itself. So into your name, into this GitHub repository name, I'm going to hit clear. And now we need to create some files here. So we're going to use the touch command, and we want index.html. So that's our start. Another touch command, and we want style.css. Another touch command, and we want script.js. So there's our 3, oops, I typed that wrong, touch space script.js. There we go. So now if I clear that and I type in list again, I now see all 3 markdown files with the HTML, the CSS file, and the JavaScript file. So we are set to start this off. One other thing that I would want to do, remember we want your PDFs for your projects and your photos in an assets folder. So we're going to type in right on this line here, inside of your project, mkdir, that's the make directory command in Linux, and we're going to type in assets, and that's 1t, make directory assets, and you should see that over on the left hand side. If I type in ls, now we see the blue folder assets and the other 6 files. So at this point, you are ready to go. If we open this up, let's type in clear here, bring down your terminal, and let's open up index.html in the screen here. There we go. Okay, now one option, don't forget, is we could hit Shift 1, which is the exclamation mark, and tab, and we immediately have the beginning of our template boilerplate HTML structure. However, you have the entire access to your walkthrough. So feel free to copy over a lot of that work and then adapt it to your own rather than starting from scratch. The big issue with that is make sure that you are being very clear on what file and what directory you're working with. So what I mean by that is you will have 2 index.html files open, one from the Aladdin project and one from yours. Do not get them crisscrossed. Just keep one open at a time. Once you copy and paste, close the one out. Okay, so at this point, I believe you are ready to start your project. So I want to thank you for sticking around in this basic utility video on launching your student portfolio website. Let's just recap what we've done. We actually created your own GitHub repository from scratch within the organization in which the class resides. So that still means that owners of the classroom, your teachers, could still see this, which is what you want. Then you added enhanced three markdown files so that the project specs, the Git Linux command reference, and the README are there as resources like they have been with the starter code. We then copied down that URL and cloned it to your to your AWS Cloud9 integrated development environment. And then we started creating some files, so you are now ready to go. Congratulations, everybody. This is the one and only video, so from here on out, it's all on you. Enjoy this freelance. We'll see you in the next project, everyone. Have a good time.